Good morning. Welcome to the Development and Finance Committee meeting of the Housing and Opportunities Commission for May 24th, 2024. I'm Chair of the committee, Commissioner Jeff Merkowitz. To my left, we have the Chair of the Commission, Commissioner Roy Priest. And to my right, we have Commissioner Robin Solomon, who is also the Chair Pro Tem. The first item on our agenda today is the approval of the minutes from the Development and Finance Committee meeting of April 29th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes of April 20th.
I will second. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. The motion is carried. And the minutes are approved. The first item on our first action item on our agenda has to do with Wheaton Gateway and the approval for a general contracting services. So I will turn it over to President Chelsea Andrews.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, the HOC team. We are continuing to forge ahead with our Wheaton Gateway development. This is another milestone for us. As you will see in the materials that have been provided to you, we are seeking approval to select Clark Construction Group LLC for our general contracting services for the pre-construction and construction of Wheaton Gateway. I am going to turn it over to our real estate team and the project manager, Dejana Donahue, to provide more details.
Good morning, Dejana Donahue. I'm here before you today, as President Chelsea Andrews mentioned, for the selection of the general contractor for Wheaton Gateway Phase 1. I will bypass the Wheaton Gateway overview as the project has gone through the last two commission cycles, and you all might be quite familiar. You may also recall during the last cycle that we discussed the upcoming actions, which included the selection of the general contractor. At the last commission meeting, the commission also approved the selection of JDC as the construction manager. So similarly to the CM engagement, the development team plans to engage the general contractor prior to the start of the design development to assist with the pricing and constructability guidance for the project, which is why we are seeking the GC approval at this time. Please proceed to the selection criteria, also slide 7. Thank you. RFP 2456 was issued on February 8th. The scoring consisted of staff from risk management, mortgage finance, and real estate divisions, as well as a Duffy representative. The proposals were scored on the following 5 evaluation criteria, and the following points a proposal could receive is 100. Next slide. HOC received 6 proposals in response to RFP 2456. The following 6 respondents are Davis, ranked by Engineering News Record, also known as ENR, as the 5th largest GC in the Mid-Atlantic. Davis does not have any prior experience with HOC projects. Paradigm has experience providing GC services for HOC's residences on the lane and was selected for HOC's headquarters project. Bizzuto has experience providing HOC GC services for HOC projects such as Metropoint and the Laureate. And then Whiting Turner was ranked by ENR as the 3rd top multifamily contractor in the Mid-Atlantic, and they do not have any prior experience on HOC projects. Clark was also ranked by ENR as the 2nd top green building contractor and the top multifamily contractor in the Mid-Atlantic. Clark does not have any prior experience on HOC projects. And then lastly, CBG. CBG has experience providing GC services for HOC's Fenton Silver Spring and was selected for Hillendale Gateway. As you can see, HOC received strong respondents for GC consideration. Next slide. Following a review of all the proposals, the scoring team scored Clark the highest with 95 points out of 100. To summarize the scoring team's evaluation, regarding qualifications, Clark's proposal strongly demonstrated their expertise and qualifications in all subcategories. For MFD participation, their staffing plan included 43% MFD personnel, including leadership positions, and their subcontracting plan included 35% for MFD participation. References spoke highly of their performance regarding their involvement for change order management and on-time completion. Within their proposal, they confirmed their performance and payment bondability. And regarding pricing, their proposal included a competitive fee of $270,000 for pre-construction and general overhead and profit at 7.75% for construction. Based on the scoring criteria, Clark has demonstrated that they have the skills, team, and expertise to perform GC services. Staff recommends the approval of Clark for Wheaton Gateway Phase 1, general contracting services, and the pre-construction fee in the amount of $270,000, and to include a 25% contingency in the amount of $67,500 to cover unforeseen changes in scope due to the scale of the project and to account for potential delays during the pre-construction phase. You may see here that this is a larger contingency amount than HOC standard for such services to account for such potentials. Next slide. The upcoming actions for next year now include the submission for the building permit, the approval of the final development budget, the approval to execute the GMP with the GC, and the approval of the financing plan. Next slide. In summary, the issues for consideration include to approve the selection of Clark to provide general contracting services for the pre-construction and construction of Wheaton Gateway Phase 1, to approve the pre-construction services in the amount of $270,000, including a 25% contingency of $67,500, to authorize the president/executive director to negotiate and execute a contract with Clark for pre-construction services, and to authorize the president/executive director to negotiate the GMP. There is no fiscal impact, and this is for formal action at the June 5th commission. Thank you. Are there any questions?
One thing on the point number 2, it said 15% contingency. That should be 25%.
Yes, that is a discrepancy. We will modify that.
And why is it 25%?
It's 25%. I mentioned it being larger than HOC
Right.
standard for such services. This is to account for potential delays during the pre-construction phase.
You're expecting more than has happened in the past?
We are in the process of submitting the site plan and have received preliminary comments from the county. And while we are coordinating meetings to understand the scope of those conversations, we are projecting in the event we need additional time in the schedule.
Also corrected in the point number 2, in the recommendation section, 15%, and the amount is $67,500, not $40,500.
I see. Thank you. Yeah.
As a general matter, not dealing with the GC contract, I would find it helpful in general when we describe these deals in the background, instead of listing names and their roles, if we could just stick the org chart in. Stick the org chart in.
The org
org
chart
chart.
for.
Yeah, for the deal. Here's the contractor. That's an easy one, but who the general partners are, who the main developers are, who's just an org chart instead of listing names. I mean, you probably have it on a tab on your pro forma. You could just cut and paste. I would find that helpful anyway, instead of listing names. If you all disagree, we don't have to do it.
Meaning,
No.
just so I'm clear, in that initial paragraph or the executive summary, instead of providing the outline of the parties and the partners, you'd rather see an org chart moving forward in terms of the.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I think you're just looking for a visualization of the
It's
relationships.
easier for me to see who's doing what.
okay.
I assume you know, you give it to your lender, you give it to your equity. A cut and paste. I think.
Okay,
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
sure. I just want to make sure
No, no,
I'm
I-
clear on what the direction is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would ask for that in addition to, because the narrative part is also important. It helps, in ways, it helps define the little organizational chart he's talking about. So I wouldn't remove one for the other. I would put both of them there.
And in terms of our partners and everything, have negotiated anything yet with who's getting what fees and all of that, or is that further down the road?
Oh, that's been previously negotiated, and we did provide that background information to the commission and could
Okay.
resend it to you
Yeah.
for sure.
This may have preceded me or I wasn't listening, one or the other.
Oh, no,
Thank
Okay.
you, though.
thank you.
So one, great that we got so many bids. I know we don't always. So I don't know if that's a reflection of the market slowing down and or what. But I'm just some curiosity questions, I guess. They got the highest score. Were they the lowest price or?
They were the lowest price for pre-construction services.
Okay.
And very competitive in the construction percentage fee that
Yeah.
we disclosed.
And that was, I wanted to ask about that. Today, we're only being asked to approve the pre-construction part.
Yes.
And yeah, I was wondering, I don't know how the 7.75% profit and fees translates. And I mean, is that the form that is typically presented for construction phase services?
So because we engaged the general contracting services early, this was a way for the respondents to still compete on price, even though there aren't drawings necessarily at this time for them to bid. And so the percentages for general overhead and profit was that competitive process. Typically, what HOC sees for these services tend to range between 10 to 13%. So this was a very competitive price that we saw from Clark.
And the a profit that's based on their costs, or is
The
that,
hard
so
costs,
it's, yeah, so it's not like profit of the whole building or something.
Yeah.
And did the scoring factor in both the pre-construction phase and the construction phase, or?
It did, yes.
Yeah.
This is for approval for pre-construction and construction services.
Okay. Okay. But that's what will be negotiated.
Yes, and with the approval of the commission, we would proceed with those negotiations.
Okay. Okay, great. And then a question on the also on the issues for consideration and recommendation on number 4, where it says to negotiate the contract for construction services that reflect these terms. It's a little unclear here what these terms is. Is that referring back to the 7.75%, or is that referring back to something else?
It is referring back to the 7.5%. We can clarify that in that. line.
Okay. Okay. Are there additional questions?
No, just an observation. Looking at the time frame before it, it said that the GMP contract would not be negotiated until about September, correct?
It'll be, we typically don't actually execute the construction contract until we're there on financing. So it'll be negotiated well ahead of October, November. And it does take some time frequently, but the reason why you're seeing that distance between here and there is because we typically don't execute the contract and bind the commission until we absolutely know we've got the money to build this thing.
Yeah. And this is to negotiate the contract. When the final contract is negotiated, it will come back to the commission.
Correct.
Yes.
If there are no additional questions, is there a motion to support the staff's recommendations and send the item to the full commission?
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda has to do with a bridge loan for the demolition of Elizabeth House Apartments. And I will
Yes.
turn it over again to President Andrews.
Thank you. Commissioners, as you are aware, we have started the demolition of Elizabeth House. As reflected in this material, we did learn while undergoing that demolition that there were some environmental issues that needed to be addressed. We have outlined a path forward, which includes the need for additional funding. We will work with and hopefully get support from the county in regards to this additional expense, because it is also desired that once this building is brought down, that there will be a nice community space, open space that leads into the SCRAC. And so we are talking with our county partners. However, we want to continue down the path since we have assembled everyone to get this building down safely. And we are providing insight and clarity here so that residents, former and current residents in the community are assured that there are no outstanding hazards for them. But we do need to take next steps. And I will turn it over to our real estate team, Jay Shepard, the housing acquisition manager that's leading this project.
Thank you very much, President Executive Director Andrews. For the record, my name is Jay Shepard, Housing Acquisition Manager in Real Estate Development. So good morning, Commissioners. Before you again, as President Andrews mentioned, we are asking for an approval of an additional bridge loan of up to $1.5 million from the PNC $60 million line of credit. That's to provide funding for the continued demolition at Elizabeth House. We're already on slide 3. That's great. Slide 3, item was last at the commission in April of last year, 2023, when the commission approved the award of IFB 2361, and that was to the Berg Corporation for the demolition. At the same time, we approved the budget. It was a $3 million budget that included $1.5 million from the county CIP, a $1 million bridge loan from the PNC relock line, and then $500,000 from the OHRF. The contract was executed with Berg in June of 2023. Demolition activities commenced at that time, and with administrative approvals for the demolition work. That also allowed the remaining tenants to move out of the building. In December of 2023, HOC received change order 1, and that was for bulk trash and furniture removal of items that were left in the building. Those had to be removed. And the contractor was able to start some select interior demolition. And also at that time, they started to expose certain parts of the main structure so that they could figure out what was all involved with that. In exposing that concrete block structure, the contractor noted the presence of waterproofing materials that was on the exterior of the block wall, and it was between the block and the brick. So it has a brick veneer and a concrete masonry block wall. And this waterproofing material was on the inside between those two walls to protect the interior block wall from water penetration if it were to get through the brick wall. This material was obviously not visible to us. It wasn't directly exposed to the environment. Upon testing, it was determined to contain asbestos materials. In March of this year, we received change order 2, and that was for $1,808,000. And that covers the cost to properly remove this material, haul it off-site in a manner that's consistent with state and federal regulations for that material. And then also bring in clean backfill, because we were going to use that material to crush up and use on site as clean fill. And because it's no longer clean, it was being removed, we had to replace that material. Therefore, the new budget increased by actually only by $1.5 million, because we did have contingency in the original budget. So staff is now currently seeking a new approval budget of $4.5 million, where this additional $1.5 million is coming from the PNC $60 million line of credit. Slide 4 actually highlights the scope of the abatement and the removal, as well as our plan management of removing these materials, as I said, within strict accordance of state and federal guidelines. The location of the materials not only created the condition of an unknown discovery for the scope for the demolition, but because of where it was, it was never exposed to the environment nor to the residents who lived there previously. The contractor will take all steps required to handle this material safely. And since HOC is constructing our headquarters across the street, we've decided to include those updates on the demolition into that webpage for the HQ, so the community can stay informed of the activities of this entire area, because it's a concentrated area. On slide 5, we show the scheduled impacts, the findings. We would have been finished in June of this year with the demolition. However, because of these findings, it's prolonging the scope out to April of 2025. That's an extension of approximately 10 months. On slide 6, we present the detailed budget showing the breakdown. These lines of credits carry interest that we have to pay monthly, and so that we've included that in the budget to account for that until closing. And the repayment of these sources will occur at the earlier of a replacement funding from the county or the OHRF, as President Andrews mentioned, or closing proceeds from the redevelopment of Elizabeth House Phase 4. Slide 7 is our past commission actions that we mentioned, and then slide 8 are the issues for consideration. And we are therefore asking the Development Finance Committee to join staff in recommending that the commission, number 1, approve the full cost and funding of the demolition. And that's the budget totaling $4.5 million. And number 2, approve an increase in authorization to draw from our PNC Bank $60 million line of credit, or LLC, for $1.5 million to cover that additional budget increase and the cost as mentioned. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those at this time.
Does this increase of $1.5 million cover also the cost of the use of the PNC line of credit? Because again, we're not sure exactly of how long it's going to take. We've got an idea, but it could take longer. So I'm wondering, what's the cost of the use of that financing, and is that wrapped into this 1.5?
Yeah, I actually had it broken out on slide 6. If you look in middle of the table on the right, underneath the change orders, and then includes backfill replacement, there's an interest carry line of $156,398. That's a ballpark estimate, carrying it out based on the current interest rate and depending on how fast it's drawn down.
Ballpark down to the 10 cents.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a really good ballpark, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting that looking at the chart, that the interest carry is $156,398, and then additional contingency of $156,000. Backfill replacement is $468,000. So about almost $800,000 of that is associated just with interest, contingency, and backfill replacement.
Yes, correct. Yeah, the change order 2 is the combination of the ACM material demolition of $1,340,074, and then the backfill replacement of $468,000 is included in that change order. It's just broken out in this table as 2 items, but it's all one change order. But you're right, the interest carry and the additional contingency are budgetary items we're adding on top of the change order.
Question on the line of credit. If you go back up to our previous approvals for this, I note that we had somewhere else, I forget, but we had previously approved the use of $1 million from. So are we being asked to approve the use of an additional 1.5, or would this be, do we only need to approve 500.
It's additional.
It's
It's
additional.
additional.
Mhm.
So, but there doesn't, we weren't using the first million as part of the original budget.
We were, and in fact, just to reorient, we actually received a quote. The approval was up to $3 million. The work actually came in a little less. We thought that we'd have some flexibility and have the ability to create the green space, et cetera. So we have commission approval up to $3 million. At this point, we now need actually commission approval for an additional $1.5 million.
Now, I understand for the budget, but I'm talking about just for the use of the PNC line of credit.
Right. So we previously had approval for the PNC line of credit for $1 million. We're also now seeking $1.5 million to complete this
But
project.
are we going to use that original 1 million?
We are, and there was some discussion with the county in regards to ultimately receiving, while we obviously needed to get started with the project, a potential zero interest loan at one point was the approach that the county agreed to take. I believe due to budget constraints, that has not been included in this particular budget, so it will be something that we have to revisit. There's a footnote that we do provide here to try to provide a little context around that. But the thought was, and what the commission did approve, was for us to use our line of credit as a bridge. We were to receive some funding from the county, a loan, a zero interest loan from the county. That was not included in the county's
Okay.
budget. Yes.
So we may
will
may or
conti-
may not get that loan?
We will continue to pursue with the county the support we need here, and we'll incorporate this additional 1.5 million.
Got it. Okay. General question just on the asbestos. I mean, this was an HOC building. Did we build this?
Many years ago, it was
Yeah.
our first headquarters actually as
Right.
well.
I'm just curious, like what the process is, you know, when we decide to take down the building. Do we know what's in the building? Like, was there a reason we didn't know that asbestos was part of this to begin with?
Yes, I mean, that, again, it was, it was hidden. I mean, it was visibly hidden. It was between, when you look at the building, all you see is the brick exterior. The concrete masonry block that's behind that is basically sandwiched between the interior walls and the brick
But I
exterior.
understand that it's not visible, but I guess
Right.
Asking where the
So-
plans and specs
So
look.
did we,
Right.
Oh,
right,
and the plans
and so,
and
yeah,
specs.
no, we don't have, for instance, like the waterproofing spec from that construction. So, yeah, but I understand what you mean. Like if we built it, don't we have the record of what we used and didn't we know at the time? And we don't have that, we don't have that level of detail on that building. Due to its age.
Is that on just that building? Like, as we, you know, obviously we're not using asbestos anymore, I
Right.
assume.
Right.
But, you know, who knows what material would be found in the future to, you know, and I'm wondering, like, will we be, do we have records on other buildings that we may eventually have to take down or even going forward, like on, like what materials are being used, and so that we would be able to anticipate this kind of expense?
Yeah, it definitely varies. This is, you know, this is definitely the oldest in the fleet. And so, you know, the records that we have are sort of consistent with that. I will also say that, you know, we've done a number of demolitions over the past few years. And in general, you know, we've had, you know, pretty decent success at sort of, you know, at projecting these things fairly well. You know, we brought the ambassador down, for instance. And so this is just one of those examples of where it was in a material that nobody really knew was even there, and just absolutely could not be seen. So
It's not surprising that I've run into this too, you know, with
Yeah.
plans from decades ago and you get page 1 and page 12, and, you know, or no pages at all.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily surprised. I just want to understand that, like, if there is a way for us to anticipate this, that we do. And I mean, obviously, it's, something we have to do, and we want to, biggest priority is protecting the health of the community, as part of this. So,
What's the rate on the PNC line?
We could circle back and provide those types of details to you all.
I'm just curious.
Yes,
Thank you.
no problem. Thank you.
You had a sort of the repayment when that you had 3 levels where we might get our money back. The last, of course, being when the building was built. And given that we don't have any immediate plans, as I don't think, for rebuilding that property yet, that's outside 3 years at least somewhere. So hopefully we'll get the city, the county to put up the money so we can get our money paid back sooner to the P&C line of credit.
Yeah, and just to give you just kind of a general expectation, so we're going to be coming back to you all this calendar year with a wrap on sort of a bunch of things over there. Obviously, the Leggett and the Leggett getting toward permanent conversion, wrapping up that transaction. We're wrapping up the SCRAC with the county. We've got this demolition going on. And so you all can anticipate this year sort of a global wrap of this, which is where we would also have had our conversations with the county and identifying additional assistance with them, but really coming back with that permanent plan. Because to your point, we have no plans to redevelop Elizabeth House in the near future. So we're not going to leave it on the line for, an indeterminate amount of time.
So I know that when the building is demolished, we're going to use that space as green space. Do we have funding already identified for where we're going to use the funds to make that a green space? And where is that money?
Again, we're going to have to try to work with the county. We have raised this with them on a repeated basis in terms of bringing down our space. Our only obligation is to bring down our space and to ensure that it's safe and that we don't have any vulnerabilities with people coming in and out. Obviously, because of where it's located, there's a joint interest in terms of beautifying that space, but it will be an expense that the county would need to help support. And I think it will just be a matter of timing in terms of when and how they are able to identify funding sources for that.
No, it just, in terms of the timing of identifying that would come at the same time. This one big wrap up, as you saw with the extension of the timing needed to complete the demolition, now pushed out to April. As part of this overall wrap up, we would also provide you with what President Andrews just described.
Yeah, I know during the Leggett opening, we had a ceremony there. Someone referred to the fact of that building coming down and there would be open space. But we should look at the tape and see who said that, because maybe they're claiming some responsibility to make sure that happens. Okay, I didn't say it, so.
If Chelsea, you wouldn't mind when it's the PNC line flow, does the rate change monthly, annually, just some very, very broad?
Right.
On the PNC.
We will provide that
I
information to
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
But even the 0% line would amortize. The 0% loan from the county would amortize, so it still would have had a cost.
So that conversation, which we will also revisit, the intent there was really we were actually trying to be collaborative with the county and helping balance their different buckets of money. And so the idea was that it would really be almost like a springing loan. So it would just sit there dormant until we were ready to. So it basically, the idea was make it a very long outside date, 0%. But once we go forward with the redevelopment, it turns into
It was a grant loan.
a grant loan. Yeah. So but it was supposed to lie dormant until Elizabeth House 4 is. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear you all going to be doing something to post information about what's going on. Because with the building coming down with asbestos, the community certainly would want to be aware of what safeguards we are making sure are happening or in place. It's interesting that HUD for years has had funding available to help with lead issues. It's never had any money I'm aware of for asbestos. And yet there's been a very prevalent issue for a lot of properties that were previously built as public housing, was this whole asbestos problem. Lead we addressed, but asbestos, no. So maybe that we could think about, maybe we can ask our good senior lender whether or not through their lead-based paint, we could somehow connect it up to our asbestos issue.
Former chair of the Housing, Senate Housing Appropriations Committee, was a senator from Baltimore. Lead was huge.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the focus.
Mm-hmm. Just something to think about.
Are there any additional questions? If not, can I get a motion to support the staff's recommendation and send the item to the full commission?
So move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other items for the agenda today? If not, I will call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.